and welcome to Picture Show from Bossier Parish Community College. I'm your host this week, James Farrar, and it's my first time hosting, so be gentle with me. Joining me today is Bailey Harvey, and Bailey, I don't know about you, but I'm excited. We're talking How to Train Your Dragon, the Hidden World today.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into the movie, let's take a look at the trailer.
There were dragons when I was a boy. Where they went, only a few know. Our story changed the world forever. We did it! The world's first dragon Viking utopia.
Your utopia, maybe. Mine's less crowded and more... sanitary.
Hey, bud, wait up! Oh my God, he's not the only one.
She's a light fury.
Oh, sorry.
Did she just disappear? Wow.
It's a hidden dragon world. Toothless, go introduce yourself.
Found my heart, broke it, made friends and lost them through the years.
Toothless has a girlfriend.
I've hunted every night fury except yours. Hand him over.
I will never give him up.
Then I will destroy everything you love.
We are no longer safe here. We all have to disappear, completely off the map. We have to fight for their freedom. Come on, bud!
You're nothing without your dragon.
Attack! Show them what you got, bud. Save him. It's you and me, bud. Always.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to just dive right into the movie here, and I kind of wanted to start by looking at the first two movies. You know, how did we get to this point? What did you think about the way that they had kind of flowed the story through the first two movies to get us to where we were at the beginning of the third?
Well, I saw the first movie when I was younger, obviously, because it came out and then it was like the big hype of the season. It was about dragons, and the animation and like the different cultural aspect of the Viking era was really impressive, especially whenever they got a lot of the facts right while incorporating the element of the dragons. So during the first movie, Hiccup does discover Toothless, who he accidentally maims, and so he's flightless. And so they go on like a journey together to fight against the societal pressure of dragons are bad, and Hiccup's like, no, he's different, in which Hiccup has always felt different, so he emotionally and mentally connects to a dragon, which is impressive because it's not easy at first. And so during the whole first movie, there's build-up, and then there's a lot of infighting with people and their various opinions, because Hiccup is the symbol for change, and people are not accepting of that, especially people during the Viking era where they're so set.
That did kind of seem to be a theme throughout all of the movies, was kind of going hand in hand with what we have going on today. I think they were really trying to play that off as the overwhelming message behind the story, if you will. But I liked how they weren't afraid to really talk about some adult themes. It was a kid movie, but there were very much adult themes, as far as like you were talking about, with people being afraid of dragons, scared of them, misunderstood. What did you think about the way they kind of used metaphor, and even in a kid's movie they really talked about some stuff that pertains to adult life?
Well, I thought it was very impressive. I mean, DreamWorks has had a historical aspect to them throughout all their different movies, and they do like to fight against different things, especially in like their new recent serials and their movies. And How to Train Your Dragon was just like a concept that built and everybody enjoyed it, whether or not they understood the metaphors, because the kids loved the aspect, whereas the adults were like, oh, okay, because they started seeing and the kids started warming up to the different ideas that it was projecting from the movie.
And kind of give you a little teachable moment there in again a kids movie. Okay, so we get through the first movie and they've discovered dragons now that they didn't think existed anymore. They've kind of befriended them. They've started to understand them. And then what happens in the second movie that we see? What changes?
Well, during the second movie, we see that Hiccup has lost his leg, and so now he's even more like Toothless, who he had maimed, and that, as you said, introduces a adult concept of amputees and how they recover. And Hiccup does have noticeable fears during the movie about him trying to get past his disability, especially since it's not seen as a warrior concept, because he did lose it in battle, but people are still looking at him like he is different, and his metal leg instead of like a wooden leg just proves that more. So in the second movie, it's all about this new dragon era almost, because Hiccup is slowly introducing Berk to adding dragons and people are starting to warm up to it. However, then there's this threat, which isn't really a threat, spoilers, but there's like a dragon lady and she's all around and Hiccup's noticing her more and more because he's trying to like save all the dragons, and there's a big like prison bust, and then plot twist, it's Hiccup's mom, and Hiccup's like, I haven't seen you since I was a kid, which introduces the concept of, you know, growing up like a single parent, how it's hard. And then you get Stoic, Hiccup's dad, who's like, he missed his wife, obviously, and it was hard on him, so he was tough with Hiccup, taking out his, like, you know, pent-up frustrations and taking it out on Hiccup, incidentally, even though Hiccup's mom had left to protect him because she wanted to be with the dragons, to protect the dragons.
Right.
Which gives you the idea that Hiccup ideally is more like his mother, though he loved his father as well.
I loved how they did that too. They basically gave him one parent his entire life, introduces him to both his parents, and then immediately he's back down to one again. What happened with that?
Well, Stoic and Hiccup's mom, I forgot her name at the moment, they do have a, you know, reconnecting, igniting that spark again, and they do have a couple happy moments as a family. But then during like a big battle in which there was like a dragon overlord kind of, Hiccup's mom and, you know, the rest of the gang, Astrid, etc., they're all fighting to protect what's theirs. And then Hiccup is away from Toothless at the moment. Toothless is his protector in a way. And so Stoic, he takes a hit for Hiccup, and Hiccup loses his dad.
And okay, so but they got past that, and that kind of gets us into the third movie. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the bad dragon in the second movie, because at the end of it, he's kind of the king. You know, he can hypnotize the other ones. But at the end of it, Hiccup actually beats him. And so when we start the third movie, and that's the one we're here to talk about today, Toothless is actually going to be like the king of the dragons, I guess you would call it. He can actually control the rest of them a little bit, can't he?
I'm going to correct you.
Okay.
Hiccup does not challenge the alpha dragon at the time. The alpha dragon is a big, white, one-tusked, kind of like elephant, whereas Toothless, he doesn't necessarily know he is alpha, even though he is a Night Fury, which is one of the rarer, breed of dragons. He instead unlocks his alpha potential, protecting the ones he loves, which is, like a key element, especially in like different societal norms for animals, like wolves. They have an alpha, and the alpha protects the rest of the pack. And so with this, Toothless fighting against the alpha, and then he does not necessarily take his powers or anything like that. He just takes the new role of the dominance. So he does, have a heavy influence over other dragons, which is, more, what's the word? Expanded in the third movie.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've gotten you to where the third movie begins, and now we'll dive right into that one when we get back. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Rusty Wallace. In racing, the driver is only as good as the team they've got behind them. The same principle holds true in business. A successful company invests in employees that are highly skilled and display good character. Our returning servicemen and women fit that bill. They've shown that they've got the qualities that make them real assets to any company that hires them. In the military, their education may include training in technology, communications, and logistics. But more importantly are the values that they embrace, like courage, integrity, and leadership, the same values that can make a business successful. So if you're an employer, on behalf of the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, I want to urge you to hire smart and bet on a vet. It's also a great way to thank them for the service they provided on our behalf. To learn more, call the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes at 1-888-44-SALUTE or visit saluteheroes.org on the web. Thank you.
Welcome to your Netflix and DVD picks for this week. I'm Melanie Flores. First up, we have a few movies just released on DVD this week, beginning with Creed 2. This sequel to 2015's Creed, also part of Rocky Balboa's film franchise that began with the movie Rocky, released in 1976. It stars Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, Tessa Thompson as his now fiancée Bianca, and Sylvester Stallone, who reprises the role of Rocky Balboa for an 8th time. The movie begins 3 years after the events of the first Creed film, and everything seems to be perfect in Adonis's life. He's engaged to Bianca, has a new baby daughter, and is the current WBC World Heavyweight Champion, with a cancer-free Rocky in the corner. But a fight from his past is about to challenge everything as Victor Drago, the son of Ivan Drago, the man who killed Adonis's father, Apollo Creed, during an exhibition match 33 years earlier, comes forward to challenge for the title. Now Adonis and Rocky must both face tragedy that reshaped their lives or risk losing everything they've worked so hard to earn. Next up is the comedy Instant Family, starring Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne as Pete and Ellie, a happily married couple who decided to adopt a child, enroll in foster care system, and quickly get over their heads when they get impressed by Lizzie, a teenage eligible for adoption, and end up with her 2 younger siblings as well. Going from 0 children to 3 in an instant presents plenty of issues for the couple as they try to navigate everything that comes with their family. Now, with the new arrivals available this week on Netflix, beginning with Apollo 13. Nominated for 9 Academy Awards in 1995, including Best Picture, Apollo 13 was directed by Ron Howard and stars Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Carrie Sinise, Ed Harris, Kathleen Quinlan, and the late Bill Paxton. The movie tells a dramatized version of the real-life aborted 1970 Apollo 13 lunar mission and was critically acclaimed for the lengths it went to try and be as technically accurate as possible, even getting assistance from NASA and filming abroad a reduced gravity aircraft to simulate the weightlessness in space. Finally, we have the Netflix original film, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Chiwetel Ejiofor makes his directorial debut in a film he adapted from the William Kamkwamba book with the same name. Ejiofor also stars in this drama about a boy born in Malawi who attempts to save the village from a drought by building a prototype windmill using skills he learned in a science book and parts he was able to scavenge. The movie received mostly positive reviews when it debuted at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival before it was picked up by Netflix. That's all for this week's Netflix and DVD picks. Let's get over back to the picture show.
All right, welcome back to Picture Show here on the campus of Bossier Parish Community College. Today we're talking about How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and we've gotten through the first 2 movies and kind of told you how we got to this point. So now let's get into the 3rd movie, and I know you had some feelings about the way the 3rd movie started, so tell us about the opening. How does it start out?
Well, during the 1st and 2nd movie, it starts with This is Berk, which is the intro to the island in which Hiccup does live on, along with the rest of his clansmen almost. And so the 3rd movie starts with this, fiery scene of Hiccup walking through, which he had set stuff on fire with a sword, and then it's just kind of like really Games of Thrones-esque.
It definitely made me want to go rewatch Game of Thrones, I'm just saying.
Yeah, and it was disgusting because it didn't stick with the tradition of the 1st and 2nd movie.
But do you think maybe there's a reason that they did that? Like, it's the 3rd movie, they're grown-ups now in this. At this point, they're not really kids anymore. Hiccup is the leader of the Vikings, and so I'm thinking maybe they did that on purpose to just, this movie's going to be a little bit, darker possibly.
Well, that was probably definitely the aspect and concept they were going for, with Hiccup being a grown man, fighting his own battles, burning away his own fears about, like losing Toothless later on, etc. And it just opens with them, breaking out all these dragons, which is something we're used to. And then they left one, the most important one that would be a key figure later on.
I don't think they saw her, did they?
No, she has the power to turn herself invisible by
Right.
bending light around herself, unlike Toothless, who can bend the night around himself and blend in with his colored coat.
Is that why they're called a Night Fury and a Light Fury?
Well, Astra did come up with that on the spot, even though Hiccup was like, let's call her a Bright Fury.
I feel like that one was really obvious. after that, they do the This Is Bert thing again, and we get to actually see Bert now, and there's a lot more dragons than there have been in any other movie. Like, it is, I don't know how anybody was living there.
Right. Well, it went from like outskirts of a German community to India all of a sudden with all the dragons and repopulating. They had even built like fixtures and buildings just specifically for dragons that were like birdhouses. And it was really great to see how they were all incorporating, except Berk was so small it couldn't contain it.
So what do they I know they come up with a plan. We introduce ourselves to the main bad guy, Grimmel, and they imply that he's going to be the worst one that we've faced yet. And it does kind of seem that way. He's more cerebral. He's that James Bond villain bad guy that's dangerous because he'll outthink you instead of just physically beat you. But they decide they've got to leave Berk, and they decide that they can't stay anymore. So what happens? How do they come to that conclusion?
Well, during the movie, it is seen that we do meet the bad guy, but it's because someone tells him that the chief, which is Hiccup, has Toothless, which is a Night Fury, which is like the villain's lifelong quest to kill them all off. So he uses the one that wasn't saved from the ship, the Light Fury, to come and lure Toothless, in which those two do meet. And so Hiccup's like, oh my gosh, there is a partner for Toothless. And even though they're kind of like swans, they have like a life-mate connection. So they leave Berk so that Toothless can find his mate as well as they try to find the hidden dragon Utopia so they can all be free and live together, which is the idea that Hiccup thinks he wants at the time because he's scared to let go of Toothless, who he considers a part of his identity. Well, throughout this whole shifting of different islands to island, it goes from how Hiccup realizes that Toothless is fine without him in a way. He can handle himself, especially when he makes a new tail, so he can go off and be with his Light Fury girlfriend. And though they find an island, and everyone's really excited to settle because it is bigger, it has more resources, it's brighter, it's a whole new area for them to be and move instead of the 5 generation of at Berk, which is their island previously. And it's going to be like New Berk 2.0, because they're so creative with names. And during this island escapade, they are building and they're still trying to incorporate the dragons to them. And then it goes to this whole scene about how bad guy comes in and he tries to take Toothless, and he uses his kidnapped dragon girlfriend to show that Toothless is the alpha. He has control of all of the dragons, and the bad guy has this deal with these other hooligans who are trying to capture these dragons, ride them, breed them, etc., use them for a slave concept, which is absolutely horrific.
Well,
because
he's got his 6 dragon slaves, doesn't he? He's got the six dragons he has that he poisoned. He used their own poison against them to now that they only listen to him. So I mean, he basically has dragon slaves. That's his whole thing.
Well, no, that's the main guy. I'm talking about the other 3. The general, the one that looks like a...
Oh, the lackeys, yeah. They
right.
Really...
The lackeys, they want all these dragons to, create, this empire, whereas main guy just wants to kill Toothless. He developed, a way to use the venom against the dragons on themselves, so where they wouldn't listen to the alpha, which was Toothless, because they're in a mind loop of their own to where they only listen to the guy who's injecting them with poison. Similar to how, people can't break away from a contract and all this other stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to something that you had said earlier, because it's my favorite part of the movie. When when Toothless and the Light Fury are kind of hitting it off on the beach, and he's doing the dances and stuff, and it had a feel of a teenager who falls in love for the first time, and then you get Hiccup as almost like the parent to Toothless, and you really get that I'm afraid to let my kid leave the house thing, but my kid's in love, and I thought that whole thing was really well done. My favorite part of the movie was kind of that dynamic of the kid leaving the house with the girlfriend and the dad not wanting to let him go. But so we're on the island now. How do they actually find the hidden world? Because they might think this is it, because this is the first island that they came to and it was big, but that's not even where they're really trying to get to, right?
Right. Well, they don't find it. Toothless finds it. And he does, in a way, Toothless finds it with his girl. And they become these huge king and queen of all this dragon, Utopia, etc. Well, Hiccup and Astrid also find it after Stormfly goes a little haywire because she's so close to the mating spot of where the alpha is and where the queen is. So they go and they see this beautiful cave, well done CGI, etc., of how under the water there's like this glowing fungus look, and the dragon has this entirely new skin design because it brought out some reflective material within their scales, and then you get to this whole scene of where it's just magnificent, it's beautiful, and then all the dragons turn on them.
All right, well, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we'll tell you how it all ends. We're talking How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and on Picture Show here at Bipsy, so stay tuned.
Lean on me when you're not strong.
The Coast Guard Foundation gave me funds to attend school. During that same time, my wife was pregnant. The foundation's grant allowed us to buy food, diapers, clothing.
Coast Guard Foundation really helps us to keep in touch with our families. They make an impact, and it leaves an impression that you don't forget.
I would like to thank the Coast Guard Foundation for helping out when times were tough.
Because sometimes, even the rescuers need to be rescued. The Coast Guard Foundation, proudly supporting the men and women of the United States Coast Guard and their families. Find out how you can help at rescuetherescuers.org.
Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Friday Flick Pick. I'm Adam Stampley. In its 11th year, the Marvel Cinematic Universe will end its 22-film spanning story with Avengers Endgame. But before the final stone has been overturned, Brie Larson will make her MCU film debut as Captain Marvel. Let's take a look at the trailer.
So, Skrulls are the bad guys. And you're a Kree, a race of noble warriors.
Heroes. Noble warrior heroes.
Your life began the day it nearly ended. We found you. With no memory, we made you one of us. So you could live longer, stronger, superior. You were reborn.
I keep having these memories. Something in my past is the key to all of this.
You know how to fly this thing?
We'll see.
That's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Would you like to know what you really are?
I think I had a life here. What aren't you telling me?
You've come a long way, but you're not as strong as you think. This war is just the beginning.
I'm not gonna fight your war. I'm gonna end it.
Aren't you the cutest little thing? Aren't you cute? And what's your name, huh?
Fury.
What's cute? I'll be back.
That's going to do it for this week's Friday Flick Picks. I'm Adam Stampley. Let's get you back to the picture show.
Welcome back to Picture Show. I'm James Farrar. Harvey, I'm sorry, I almost said Harris is with me. So we got a couple minutes left, and I really wanted to wrap up two final things in the movie. The first one is Astrid and Hiccup's relationship. They're together. I mean, they're together in this movie, essentially, and they're engaged, I think, almost. And so Astrid's trying to kind of get Hiccup to realize, that he's a good chief and that sort of thing. Tell me about that relationship.
Well, throughout the movies, we see their relationship is progressing, and in the final movie, it's coming to this almost conclusion because during this movie, they do get married. Spoilers, no offense. But Astrid is trying to convince Hiccup that he is a good leader and that as Toothless is pulling away from Hiccup, and Hiccup feels like it's a part of his identity that's moving because that's his best friend, which he clings on to because he's the only one that ever really understood him. He made these changes with him. Astrid's trying to tell Hiccup, like, hey, you are a good leader with or without Toothless. He's just a crutch that you hold on to, so you camouflage yourself behind him in your deeds. And so Astrid helps Hiccup realize that he can let go of Toothless, which is kind of letting go of him and his facade that he keeps up with people.
Okay, so they do that, and the battle, to me, honestly, the final battle wasn't that impressive. I thought it was more of just a very generalized battle. Good guys win. You know, I didn't really see too much there. But once that's over with, tell us how it ends. Hiccup and Toothless, they figure it out. They go off together. There's a really nice moment at the very end of it. So how do we wrap everything up?
Well, first I have to disagree with you. I thought the end battle was a very, great thing to end the series because it goes from how this big mastermind villain squares up against Hiccup, and Hiccup takes him head on, believing in himself and his people, and so they all come together as like a completed moment of they did change, everything has changed around them, but they're back to a whole without the dragons necessarily because they fought against their sort of oppressors, and then while everyone gets taken again, they release the dragons, which was the entire point of the movie series, where you release how these like whimsical, majestic creatures are being trapped and captured for something they didn't do because we're threatened. And so at the end moment, Hiccup and Astrid have children, and they go out to meet Toothless and the Light Fury, who doesn't have a name, and their children. And it becomes like this full circle of how they both started with nothing, and then they all have a family in the end.
And at the end, Toothless is talking about, Hiccup's talking about it too. The world thinks dragons are gone again, which is how the whole thing started. They didn't think dragons existed anymore. So they kind of come full circle and wrap it up that way too.
Right. Because the world isn't ready for such a big change because people want to dominate and, dictator, sort of like with the dragons.
That's all the time we have for today. That was How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. I would like to thank Bailey for correcting me and telling me all the things that I didn't understand about the movie because I didn't. And she was very, very, very knowledgeable on that one. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to come back next week where Danny Foots and Chris Hale will be looking at the newest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain Marvel.